Thank you for joining us. Have you ever wondered why you enjoy the things you enjoy? Why you think the things you think and do the things you do? Why you are the person that you are? These are all questions that you ask frequently when studying psychology. As a psychology graduate, I've had a deep fascination with what makes us the people that we are today. And a large part of that is our sexualities and our sexual preferences. I've spent the last 2 years working professionally in the adult film industry and also as a live event professional dominant. In my experience working in the sex industry, you encounter a lot of ignorance. People just simply don't understand, whether it be understanding a sexuality, a sexual preference, what you do as a job. The list is endless. It's unfortunate, but a lot of it can stem back to a simple fact that the sex education, at least here in the UK, is lacking. Here in the UK, there is an abundant lack of willingness to talk about, acknowledge, or explore sex as a topic, and this ignorance is spread sadly to the education curriculum. In schools, sex education consists of STIs, how to wear a condom, and not much else, which leaves impressionable teens to either be reluctant to talk about sexuality or to seek information from places such as porn. This reluctance to talk about sex can lead to a lack of communication in your relationships, resulting in repressed sexualities, poor sex lives, and dysfunctional relationships. As you may have gathered from the title of this video, today's topic is masochism. In today's society, social media is swarming with an abundance of films, TV series, and books, all attempting to depict sadomasochistic relationships, and often failing to do so successfully. Recent examples of this within the mainstream media are films such as 365 Days and the 50 Shades of Grey franchise, all of which set out with the goal of depicting a sadomasochistic dynamic, and instead only succeeded in depicting a toxic cycle of Stockholm Syndrome and abuse. These films do not accurately represent sadomasochistic relationships, and have consequently had huge implications for the BDSM community as a whole. This video will attempt to rectify some of the misconceptions surrounding masochism, as both a sexual preference and as a psychological disorder, drawing from real scientific literature in order to better educate you on the true nature of masochism, its causes, its potential benefits, and of course, its risks. All the sources of information for literature and the quotes will be referenced at the end of the video. So, what is masochism? The Oxford Dictionary defines masochism as the tendency to derive sexual gratification from one's own pain or humiliation, and is classified by a DSM-5 as a disorder, specifically speaking a paraphilia, which is another term for a sexual perversion or preference which deviates from the norm. Psychology today defines paraphilias as a recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasy, an urge or behaviour which is distressing or disabling, and has the potential to cause harm to oneself or others. Although many associate the term masochism with attaining pleasure from being physically hurt, the term actually applies to a much wider variety of stimuli, including being degraded, insulted, humiliated, or deprived of sexual gratification, amongst much more obvious things such as physical pain. Before going deeper into the possible causes of masochistic tendencies and the potential benefit or detriments they can cause, I thought it was interesting to note that according to the Lumen page on abnormal psychology, men make up the vast majority of the population of those who consider themselves to be or are diagnosed as masochists, despite cultural differences being present in the way in which these tendencies manifest. Masochism as a disorder. According to the DSM-5, in order for somebody to be diagnosed with masochism disorder, they must first experience intense sexual arousal from being beaten, humiliated, bound, or some other form of suffering for at least 6 months. What's more, these sexual preferences must cause clinically significant troubles or difficulties in social, occupational, or other important aspects of life. Although this video won't focus on the clinical treatment of masochism disorder, some of the suggested treatments involve prescribed medication or psychotherapy to explore the root of the issue. So, what's the cause of masochistic tendencies and why do they develop? While there is no definitive answer which can apply to all individuals who experience masochistic tendencies, there are some theories which are widely agreed upon throughout the scientific community. One such theory is that these tendencies often occur as a result of sexual abuse or trauma, whereby the victim attempts to replicate the traumatic experience on their own terms in order to justify and have control over what happened. A 2012 study by Abrams and Stefan in the Journal of Cognitive and Behavioral Psychotherapies, which addressed the correlation between sexual abuse and masochism in women, found that in every case where the female client had experienced childhood parental sexual abuse in pre-adolescence, the client had subsequently developed intense masochistic tendencies in their sexual relationships in adult life. The study went on to propose that masochism is an adaptive response to abuse, wherein rage and shame become integral to sexual arousal, a theory which has since been supported by numerous other studies. Of course, there are both positive and negative consequences to using masochism as a coping mechanism. but before we can address the potentially therapeutic effects of masochistic relationships, it's first important to understand the risks and potentially detrimental results. A 1989 paper by Bessel van der Kolk named The Compulsion to Repeat the Trauma, Reenactment, Revictimization, and Masochism, published in the Journal of Psychiatric Clinics of North America, explored the potential risks of masochism as a strategy for overcoming trauma. Van der Kolk states that the uncontrollable disruption of attachment bonds are central in the trauma response of an individual, often manifesting in the victim experiencing addiction to their abusers, dependencies on detrimental relationships, or hypersexuality, whereby an individual can uncontrollably seek approval through sex. Hypersexuality or hyperarousal often leads individuals to cycles of repetition, which can result in a victim feeling safe and secure in abusive or detrimental relationships. If an individual can only feel sexual arousal when experiencing pain or participating in sadomasochistic practices, then there will always be a high risk of them subsequently being drawn to partners who facilitate their desires for the wrong reasons. While of course there are many individuals who enjoy the sadistic aspect of this dynamic in a safe, caring, mutual and consensual way, there is also a high risk that they are doing so out of a craving for an abusive power dynamic, resulting in further trauma. Now I wonder what franchise profits from that idea. But what if an individual with masochistic tendencies explores those preferences with somebody that they can trust, in a safe and consensual relationship? Research suggests that in the right environment where all participants are comfortable and trusting, masochism can in fact be both beneficial and therapeutic. The ability for somebody to take control of an aspect of their life, previously associated with trauma, and turn it into something positive and enjoyable can massively contribute to the healing process. Roy F. Baumeister explores the potentially therapeutic effects of masochism further, both in his book, Masochism in the Self, and in the 2010 study, Masochism as an Escape from Self, published in the Journal of Sex Research. Baumeister suggests that we can neither consider masochism as a form of self-destruction, nor as a derivative of sadism. Instead, masochism may be a means of escaping one's higher level of awareness of identity or sense of self. Such awareness of self, says Baumeister, is replaced by focus on the immediate present and bodily sensations, thereby creating a means of temporarily escaping high-level self-awareness and finding momentary peace of mind. Now, if all of this seems quite confusing, that's absolutely fine. These are, of course, some rather heavy concepts, and they can be quite daunting to try to understand. Imagine it like this. If your life involves a constant need for responsibility, whether that be a high responsibility job, being responsible for your family, or having to take the initiative frequently in your day-to-day life, then the idea of completely relinquishing control to somebody else and to become a passive recipient of their will can be quite alluring. This necessity to relinquish control is why high-level businessmen, politicians, and bankers make up the large majority of clients who pay for services such as hiring a dominatrix. Relinquishing control and submitting to carnal sensations and the will of somebody else, even if only momentarily, can be quite therapeutic, even for those who have never previously experienced sexually derived trauma. In the end, as with most things in life, masochism can be both beneficial and detrimental, depending on the context, and what should be prioritised is the health and well-being of everybody involved. Masochism shouldn't be seen as a negative thing, and those who experience it should not be shamed or looked down on for doing so. Instead, they should be encouraged to explore themselves in an environment which is safe, secure, and consensual. Communication is key, and being able to discuss this stuff and have this kind of discourse when it comes to sex or sexualities is of paramount importance. For many individuals, masochism, when experienced with somebody they can trust or love, creates a safe space for them to deal with, address and overcome negative or traumatic experiences. As mentioned previously, there is of course no definitive answer as to why individuals experience masochistic tendencies, as each person is different, and these are simply some of the top scientific and psychological models to explain masochism disorder. At the end of each one of these videos, I just want to say that the most crucial thing is communication with your partner, and that you experience these things in a safe, comfortable and secure environment where both parties, or all parties, are consenting. If you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see me cover in the future, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I am of course working on a video based around sadism, as it is the polar opposite of masochism, and the two topics often go hand in hand. Please feel free to drop me a follow on Instagram at mindbodyandsoul with underscores between each word, and feel free to drop me any suggestions you have for future videos. Hope you've enjoyed and have a great day. I'll see you next time.